Why don't we go ahead and get started then? Julie, Richard, thank you for joining. This call is being recorded, and I have a high level of confidence that the recording will actually work this time. I understand that screen sharing seems to screw up this program, and I screen shared the last two of these. So again, Richard, Julie, thanks for joining, and Chris and Lillian, I really appreciate y'all's time. We're going to go through a presentation and then provide time for some questions and answers. So with that, I will turn it over. Chris, Lillian, maybe you want to quickly introduce yourselves and your roles. Julie from our Louisiana chapter, and Richard is from our San Diego chapter, as newer chapter directors.
Lillian, take it away.
Sure, I'm Lillian Miller, and I'm based here in the Oakland headquarters, and I am the manager of the local entities outreach solutions team. So we basically support chapters, groups, sections, anybody and everybody who's a local entity in using our systems. That includes all kind of core things, and it has been including Helen, which is going away, and we also do campfire event support, sorry. Chris?
And I'm Chris Thomas. I am the Chief Innovation Officer, so I'm in charge of most of the digital things that happen at Sierra Club at the national level. And yeah, I'm based in Oakland as well, and my main responsibilities are figuring out what the Sierra Club needs in terms of technology in order to support the club better, but also how to support local entities in their work with distributed systems and more access, I guess.
Yeah, that's challenging.
So do we have, is everybody going to go around?
Yeah, Richard, Julie, mind introducing yourselves and just saying a little bit maybe about how long you've been in the role?
Richard Miller, San Diego. I've been chapter director since May 1st. Been with the club, though, 10 years. So.
Hi, I'm Julie Rosenzweig. I'm the chapter director for the Delta chapter, which is all of the state of Louisiana, and I've been doing this since about October of last year, and I'm excited to be on this call. We just did our core training for the first time in May, and so I saw today that two of my group leaders were creating events in Campfire, and all of that's coming along well. Considering a lot of our volunteers and members don't use email, this has been it's been a big adjustment, but I know that everybody's very excited about the possibilities that all of the digital support Sierra Club provides all those possibilities is going to present for our chapter.
Thanks, Julie. And my name is Scott Elkins, Director of Volunteer and Leader Engagement, and coordinating these calls. So Lily and Chris, y'all want to take over with your presentation?
Yeah. Who's driving the presentation?
I'm working on it. Hold on. Can you guys see the first slide?
Yes.
Yay, okay. So, Chris, go
Okay.
for it.
Yeah, and you'll change slides. I'll just tell you when to. I'll talk for a few minutes. Lillian's going to handle, I think, most of the meat of this presentation since she's the one who is regularly engaged. I just want to run over a few high-level things of what the department here does and what my and our view is on what you all are doing and what we hope the relationship could be like and why it's important. So this is kind of what digital strategies is all about. The origin of digital strategies as a department was often in nonprofits, the digital stuff is often part of like a marketing effort or communications or maybe even advocacy. It's hard to tell where to put digital exactly because it's both strategic, but it's also an underlying infrastructure thing. So like I was at Greenpeace International before I came to Sierra Club, and we struggled with this a little bit there as well. And it brings up really interesting questions about, how do you employ digital in this kind of work? For me, it has always been and still remains a really fundamental part of a concept of the way that organizations engage people. Like, it's as intrinsic to me as what we refer to as grassroots. It's this concept of how do you translate grassroots into massive communities, because digital gives us the opportunity to reach millions of people in a meaningful way, not just like an advertising way where you say, hey, this is an important issue, you should sign this petition. We can actually, using these tools nowadays, the sophistication of these tools, we can actually create one-on-one relationships, like real meaningful and active relationships with people at scale, like in the millions of people. So I think that's where we should be going with it. And so we decided to carve out digital as a discrete unit within Sierra Club that's outside of comms and outside of advancement, and that both supports all of those units like comms, advancement, and our programs and our chapters, provides solutions for them, but also has a strategic direction of how we're using these tools and how we're using data and stuff like that. So that's really what we do, is both those things, providing tools and solutions and best practices, but also creating mission critical infrastructure that will help to, become part of really a pillar of the organization in the future. So on the next slide. So the big picture right now, what we're trying to do this year and then going forward with the systems that we've built over the past 5 years is create this conception of distribution. It's like a framework of how do we solve the problem of like chapters or individual contributors out in the field being stuck in how they use digital. Like, should they use, their own digital properties that they find, like Facebook or some local directory that they can send emails from? That's only going to go so far. Should they create their own websites, and how do they do it? We want to create a framework that allows them or you to plug in directly and really reap the benefits of having a sophisticated web platform, email platform, and data platform that will allow you to find more constituents in your area and to engage them in exciting ways, and then to move them deeper into your organization and get them like working with you more closely, which is what I think a lot of people want. They want more power, they want more people. And so that's really what we're trying to figure out how to do. Build these systems, but also then give access to folks so that they can use them independently with maybe a loose set of guiding principles or a framework, but that it's user-friendly enough, easy enough to understand, and far enough reaching that it's something you're actually going to use, something that's going to return value back to you. Supporter acquisition, we've been really focused on growing the overall constituency of Sierra Club. In the time I've been here, we've gone from about 1.2 million to 3.6 million overall supporters, and we call that our champions number. This is a combination of members and supporters, because often you'll have constituents who participate, but they're not members, and vice versa. But all these people in some way have tacitly opted in with us. So that's the number that we count. 3.6 million overall people are opted into us and asking us to send them stuff and ask them, to make contributions. Helping grant campaigns grow and win through engagement, like what I just described with this distribution thing, giving tools to campaigns and to chapters to help them reach more people more effectively, and to get them more engaged with their campaigns or their issues in a more independent way. We influence the way we do it. Online fundraising, that's still another department, but it's like we have direct influence over best practices and how that stuff is done, both in email and online. And we've seen a lot more extra money come in over the past couple of years from getting more active in online fundraising and connecting online fundraising more with our online advocacy, which was a strategic direction that we did about 4 years ago. And then generally to broaden the awareness of Sierra Club and its mission and issues. So like doing social media, and it's a lot of it is really upping our social media game. And again, like when I started, I think we had 75,000 Facebook followers, something like that. And now we're over 1 million Facebook followers. So that's just on a broad kind of communications basis, we reach more people. Whether or not they engage is another question. Engagement is really what we're focused on, but reach is also really important for us. On the next slide. So, like I talked about earlier, these are the areas in this year and then going forward that we're really focused on. We spent the past 5 or 6 years building systems, investing in infrastructure so that we can do this stuff better. Before we did this investment, we were mostly relying on email as our primary way of engaging people, and then the data stuff, like Lillian mentioned with Helen. But we felt like we really needed to take it a step further now that we had better technology that was more available to us, that come into play. And it's an interesting time for nonprofits right now. Traditionally, a lot of stuff like CRM, constituent relationship management, like big data, and sophisticated web platforms and distributed systems were too expensive for the likes of us to actually be able to use, and it was more big companies that were inventing these things and creating them and building them up for their own purposes. But it was a for-profit enterprise, so it was worth the investment for them. We've always been limited by our ability to do those kinds of big investments, and that's a lot of times we do get better return on fundraising, but the stuff that we do, the work we do, is by nature a little more intangible. So investing a lot of money in something that might up our advocacy game is still was a hard case to make, because it was really expensive in the past. Now it's gotten to be a little more commoditized and easier to implement these kinds of things. And then other companies have been, like Salesforce is one of our big partners now in doing data, and they've been very sympathetic and desirous of helping nonprofits further their mission. So all of this to say that we've been able to build much more sophisticated stuff with the level of investment that we're able to direct to it. So that's been really positive. So it results in these things that you see here, these bullets that are the main components of this platform. The distributed tools, email advocacy, social media, AdUp, core, content to creation, and then our Campfire communities. And some of this stuff is really new, so that it's not very well known in the club yet. And in fact, we don't even really have a strong sense of how it's going to be used by like volunteers or chapters, but we know it will be. And then other stuff is more sophisticated and out there. You've probably worked with Core already or AdUp. Certainly have questions about social media, how you can access email more so that you can send more emails more independently. And then distributed tools are something you'll see more and more of, especially when it comes to like getting your local constituents to create events. Which is something we want a lot of people to be able to do starting in this election season. So this is all stuff that is baked to some degree along the timeline, but all of it is going to combine in the next 3 to 5 years to roll out this distributed platform that'll be very powerful and effective especially for local constituents. My personal belief is that the strength of the Sierra Club is in its networks of volunteers and chapters, and that grassroots to me is still really, really important. So my personal challenge to myself is, how do you translate grassroots online? How do you create an online grassroots movement of millions of people who are regularly engaged with organizers in their local communities? And then how do you aggregate that up to a more powerful vision of what our movement and what our organization overall looks like and what kind of power it has? So that's really the thing that drives me, and a lot of that I hope is going into these projects and is like going to actually get realized as people start using these things more and more. Do I have any more slides, Lillian? Is that it?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, that's you then. So there you go. That's me. Thanks for listening, and I'll hand it over to Lillian.
Thank you, Chris. So I just wanted to go over the actual tools that we have available for chapters to use, just so you guys get a brief introduction of each one. Some of them are brand new, like Hustle. Some of them have been around for a couple of years, but it's always good to have a refresher of what's available. So we're going to be covering Core, which is basically the huge, heavily influenced by Salesforce, and it includes Campfire Events, Marketing Cloud, Roundcause, and Nohu. AdUp, Hustle, which is the brand new one, Campfire, which is not really rolled out to all the volunteers yet, mostly staff, Van, and then Drupal. So let's start with core. So what is core? You're going to hear this term all the time. Is it the same as Salesforce? Basically, core is a collection of different tools. They're all based on Salesforce. So Salesforce is really heavily in core. It may not always be obvious, like you may not know when you're doing campfire events that you're actually using Salesforce, but you are. So we've given it this cute little name, core, so that it covers not just the obvious Salesforce applications, but the ones that you may not know are Salesforce. And it basically enables us to leverage comprehensive data about our members and supporters to better engage them and get them more interest in participating in our mission work and moving them up the ladder of engagement. So there's been 3 phases. The first one is mostly was for advancement, for national advancement. Core 2 replaced Convio, which was our old email system. And Core 3 is replacing Helen, which was our online tool to track what people have done and to download phone bank lists and walk lists and all that good stuff. So the first one we're going to go over is Salesforce. And what can you do in Salesforce itself? You can track activists, what they do. You can go in and update a member's address information. You can put in non-members. So if you've got some local volunteers that are helping you with things, you can keep track of them in Salesforce. You can go into Salesforce and download phone bank lists, files of people to mail. You can download reports of how many people came to your events. And you can basically see who has done what. We are going through the Core 3 training right now, and it's kind of wrapping up this summer, but we'll be reaching out to all the chapters to do additional trainings, more of a one-on-one kind of training with some possibilities of some site visits to get all the chapters more comfortable with using this tool and to show them the possibilities of all the things that they can do with it. Salesforce is a really huge database that does all kind of fun, great things and can really help you with your work on a day-to-day basis. Part of Salesforce is campfire events. We used to have an older tool called Oars to create events, but we redid it. It looks very nice. It's very easy. People have been loving it. And basically, it's just an easy way to create an event. You can have that event publicized on all the club calendars. It goes into AddUp. There's online registration and attendance tracking, and a really cool online waiver for outings. And all of this events, registration, and attendance goes right into Salesforce to help you when you're pulling a phone bank list of people who have gone to your events, or to do a follow-up email for the people who helped you out at another event. Marketing Cloud is our email tool. So if you hear Marketing Cloud, it's basically how we send our mass emails. We're going into a specific kind of Marketing Cloud, like a function of Marketing Cloud called Content Builder. And the Content Builder emails have great templates that are mobile friendly because more than half of our constituents now read their emails on their phone, not on a computer. So we want them to look really good on their mobile. And Marketing Cloud's Content Builder does that. So again, you can send mass emails. You can also target emails to specific city, specific zip code, just people who have done things for you in the past, people who have shown an interest in a specific issue. So you can be very, very targeted, or you can do a mass one. And you can also track who's opening your emails, who's clicking on your links, so you know what emails are working for you and which ones are not. Round Cause is basically our donation tracking system. So we can create all kind of donation forms for you. You can track who is giving online. So you can see if you, during like the March window, when you're sending out your fundraising emails, you can see what email did better online than another email. So you can adjust your email asking appropriately. And you can also use those same forms through not just your emails, but also on a link on your website, or when you're doing setting up a take action, an action alert online. After somebody's taken action, you can send them to a donation form, and donations can also be done through AddUp using ground cause forms. Know Who is how we create our online advocacy actions. So it helps constituents target officials about issues that matter to you. So if you're in Louisiana and you've got an important issue going on, maybe to stop offshore drilling, then you'd be able to set up the alert in Know Who, target maybe the governor of the state, and people who get the link to that alert, all they have to do is just type in their name and hit click, and they can send a message very easily. You can also create simple petitions and surveys through Know Who, and these are the kind of campaigns that push up through AddUp. So you'll be able to advertise it and have it more publicized there.
Can I ask a question?
No,
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm only kidding. Of course you can.
So is Know Who a separate platform?
It is in Salesforce. So when you're using it, you may not be aware that you are using Know Who, but it is. Yes.
Okay. Because I've done something through AddUp, so created a petition. Is that the same process that you're talking about here? Or is
I
this
don't think-
separate?
Yeah, it is separate from AddUp. Basically, you can create the content in Know Who, and then you link it up to your campaign in AddUp.
Okay, I'm going to have to figure that one out. All right, thanks.
I'll be glad to have one of our Leos team people reach out to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those were the core functions that are involved with Salesforce. So now we're going to talk about some of the other functions that we have available, other tools that are not Salesforce, but will do a great job in helping you, again, handle your day-to-day work, engage with more constituents, not just members, but also people out in the wide world. So AddUp is the first one. AddUp has been around for 3 or 4 years now, and it's basically an online engagement hub. So you can set up a campaign in AddUp. You can have people take an online action that you've set up in Know Who. You can have them tweet things, recruit friends. You can have them publicize an event that's related to that campaign. And you can also have them make donations to that campaign. So it's basically a one-stop shop for activists who are involved in your issues. A great thing about AddUp is that it has this algorithm. So when you take an action and another action, it knows what you're interested in and will recommend more things for you to do. So you don't just get to click one and then you go away. AddUp wants you to get even more involved, adding up your impact on all the issues that you're interested in. Here, so basically brings all of your online actions together in one place. And you can also add updates to your campaign. So if you have, maybe you have a long running campaign and there's been some activity on it, you can place an update in there so that people know what's the updated news for that issue. And you can also send updates to your action takers. So maybe, something that people took action on was to stop a coal plant, and you can send an email to them saying, hey, we stopped this thing, now let's go after this coal plant. So again, you're getting them more involved. It's not just a take an action and run, it's getting more and more involved in the issues that people care about. Any additional questions about AddUp?
Yeah, me again.
It's all right.
That's perfect one to stay on. Some of the things that I'm a little concerned about is chapter branding and how we can maybe make our members more aware that the San Diego chapter exists as part of the Sierra Club. And I don't know, I see this official San Francisco Bay chapter campaign. I'm just wondering, and if you go to AddUp and you find a national campaign, there's the logo up there, the Sierra Club's logo in that same place. And I'm just wondering, is there some way that we can add the chapter logos to those?
Yeah, I would love to be able to do that. That's the original intent there, is that space where when you land on that page and you see Sierra Club, we should have a variety of different kinds of things that we could add to it based on who the actual sponsor of this particular thing is. And I don't think we've done it yet, and I don't know why, but I'll introduce you to the guy who runs the AddUp program and see if we can partner with each other to see if we can get that happening for you, because I would love to be able to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Ryan?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to go on AddUp and it'll shout out to you, San Diego chapter.
Yes. Exactly. We have a couple. I've used it twice now, so I have to admit I'm highly impressed with it.
Oh, good. Yeah,
We've got a good
it's really
response.
nice. Good. And it looks great on a cell phone. It looks really awesome.
That is one of the biggest things that I have a particular person who just calls me every single time something goes out that does not look good on a cell phone.
Well, AddUp will help calm that person down. Okay. The next tool I want to talk about is Hustle. Hustle is still being launched, so you may not have heard about it, but it's basically a peer-to-peer texting platform. So you'll be able to contact specific people in your state and have them come to an event or volunteer to help out with something. And basically, you would get a list of your interested people to contact. Your volunteers would each be able to send texts based on like maybe 20 per volunteer, and then have a dialogue with that person. So the example actually on the picture, the original text is asking the person to come to a rally to protect the Arctic refuge. And the person's like, okay, that sounds great, but maybe they have other questions like, is it going to be long, or can I do additional things to help? And the person who sent the text will be able to answer back. They'll have an actual text conversation with the potential attendee of this event and build a relationship and maybe get them more involved, get them to do more things with the club. And just a great way of building relationship with constituents and on issues that they have, a lot of interest in. So again, this is going to be coming out this summer. We've got the beta chapters going on right now. And so look for more information about the ability to use Hustle in the next few months. And it is very nice. It's, again, mobile friendly because you're sending the text on your mobile. And it lets you do all kind of great things, inviting people to events, engaging new volunteers, having them contact elected representatives, and just raise awareness about any kind of environmental news that you need to share out. Another tool that we have that is not launched to all volunteers yet, but will be, I think, in a month, and that's Campfire Community. Right now we have an intranet that is called Clubhouse, and it's replacing Clubhouse, and it'll be just a place for everybody to go to get information that'll help them with their work with the Sierra Club. So this will be available for staff, leaders, and volunteers, and it'll hold all kind of information for all of the people who are involved with the club. You'll be able to find comprehensive information for staff. For instance, if you're a new employee, you'll be able to find your new staff paperwork. You can follow what other people are posting. You'll be able to see really, what everybody is doing across the club, because it is very easily searchable. And it's also organized in a way that things are together based on what they have in common. there'll be a communal space online, and you'll be able to distribute content that you have yourself created for different either functions within the club or different issues within the club. It's going to be based upon your position within the Sierra Club. So chapter directors would be kind of like funneled towards things that are that chapter directors would find more useful. If you're a membership chair, you would be funneled down a different path and find information that's basically related to what you need to do. It's got a great search function, and it's also going to be easier for people who are creating the content because we'll be able to tell more easily when the information was less updated, which has been a problem with Clubhouse. Some of those pages are a little bit out of date or a lot out of date, and we'd be able to easily tell, oh, this was last updated like 2 years ago. We need to revisit the content. That way everybody has the most up-to-date information, and it'll be one spot, so it'll be easy to find, and everybody will be able to share with everything. Another tool is Van. Now this is not really inside the Sierra Club. This is a tool that most progressive organizations use, and it's really just a voter file. So you'll be able to find anybody who is a registered voter or of registerable voter age. And we are doing a project of matching our people to the voter file, so you'll be able to tell instantly who's a member, who's a constituent with us. You'll be able to track data in there, and eventually in a few months, I think, the data is just going to be flowing back and forth between Salesforce and Van. So no matter which system you use to put the data in, you'll be able to see the same data. Van is available for 29 states right now. I'm not sure if it's going to be expanded anymore in the next 2 years, but I think that those 29 states are set. And the great thing about Van is that it finds not just people who we know about, but people that might be interested in our issues that we can find based upon their scores on certain models. When we're doing walk canvassing and neighborhood walks, we'll be able to pull down information about who in those neighborhoods and on those streets we might want to reach out to because they have shown a propensity to being on our side. And that way we can get them more involved in the Sierra Club. You can also track volunteer and local activist information in Van and create lists of volunteers. The last tool I wanted to talk about was Drupal. And Drupal is basically how you can create a website. It can be hosted by the Sierra Club, so it's very cost effective for a chapter. And there's several models that you can build your website off of. We've got an apartment, a condo, a house, and a mansion. And so everything is set up templated, and you would just be able to fill in the content. Drupal is open source, so it's very easy to find information online about how to do things on it. So you don't have to depend upon just one person to help you. There's just tons and tons of Drupal resources. And again, the website will be hosted for free by the Sierra Club, and it creates a very dynamic website. You can easily add updates, and some of the information from the Sierra Club flows onto your website. So if you create an action alert in NoHoo in Salesforce, you can have that action alert automatically flow onto your website so that people, when they visit your site, would be able to just click on it. You'd also have donations, signups for opt-in lists, and also the events you create in Salesforce and Campfire events will flow automatically to a calendar on your website. So people, when they're visiting, your site, can see all the things that's going on. Sign up for events, take a action, and also maybe donate some money. So that is the end of all of our tools. I wanted to open up this to questions.
So, Lillian, this is Kate. I guess first and foremost, I want to say thanks, Kate in Virginia, and just appreciate all you do. And a quick note, I think on your last slide there, it said Van when you meant Drupal.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries, but I just wanted to flag that because hopefully others weren't confused by that. I followed what you were saying just perfectly. I had a couple questions, I guess, mainly related to Van and how we're moving towards integrating that with the other tools that we have. So Hustle, for example, is the new one that's rolling out and is the text messaging feature, which I think is going to be really cool. Do you know if that is going to be integrated with the Van?
I would think so, because that information from Hustle is going to be into Salesforce. So it'll be easily flowing into Van as well. So I think once we get the API going, the data exchange between Van and Salesforce, that kind of Hustle information will be included.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. And then also, I know that there, the core transition has been it's such a huge undertaking and is so cumbersome. And I was wondering if you can share just sort of what the status is of the transition, if there are things that are anything that's still not been moved over in the process of being moved over, and then also about where things are in terms of that API development and the integration of the core and the Van.
So some of the things that we have not gotten moved over, the big one is the chapter donations, offline donation tracking. So that's currently in Helen, and we have been working on a replacement in Salesforce. It ran into some problems, so we were working with like 3 or 4 chapters to do some beta testing with it, and it was just so buggy. It's like one thing to have like 1 or 2 bugs. This one had like 10, and it was really, really hard to use because of that, and it was going to be really hard to train and support on. So we went back to the vendor, the Round Cause donation people, and they are working on fixing that and should have it ready to be retested in October. So we're hoping we're going to launch that in November. And we would, of course, at that time, start moving all your offline donations from Helen into Salesforce as well. So we're going to bring that. The other functions, like some of the chapters and groups use the newsletter function in Helen. I don't know if Virginia does. I think they just get the file from me. But so we still have to figure out that function. We're hoping to have that actually in Campfire, so that like the newsletter editor doesn't need to have access to Salesforce. They'd be able to actually just go into Campfire and download their newsletter mailing file, and be able to keep track of who doesn't want it, or additional people who do that kind of thing. Those people there's always somebody who wants something that's not normal.
Oh yeah.
So we're still working on those, and we're hoping early fall. And then the last one is the leader updates. Oh no, actually there's 2 more. Leader updates, which is where chapters and groups can go in and update their leader information, like who's holding what position. We're hoping to have that in place also by early fall. The last one for sure are the membership reports. So if you're a membership chair, you can right now go into Helen and pull down like a summary of your membership changes, how many new people, how many people are leaving, that kind of thing, and print out like a list of people about to expire, people who just joined, so you can send like a file to people, or an email to people, or a letter or a postcard asking them to renew, or if they're brand new to the club, telling them where your meetings are and welcome to the Virginia chapter of the Sierra Club. So those things we also have not done yet, and we're hoping those also will be in Campfire. So a membership chair would not need Salesforce training or Salesforce access. They'd be able to go to Campfire and just download those reports very easily. Because a lot of times those membership chairs are not the best tech people. So those are the big functions that we have not moved over, and Helen is still needed for. We're hoping to get rid of Helen by the end of the year, but we will not get rid of Helen until all of those functions have been replaced. So no matter what, they'll be available, just not right now in Salesforce. And everything for those, except for the chapter donations, should be available like by the fall, around in the fall time, September and October.
Great.
And for the API between Core and Van, I'm not sure of the date. I think they want it to be in place by the time the big election season comes. So I'm thinking probably around September. It'll be a lot more in place than it is now. I think it's too close to where we can match people automatically, whereas before that was a manual process.
Mhm.
And so then will come the parts about the data. You know, we're getting some stuff back from Van already, which is like how, if they're registered, what party they're registered, and a couple of other pieces. So we're already getting some data back from Van. So we're moving forward on that.
Okay. And do you know if that might affect it differently if in some of our states, and I know Virginia is one, we actually have a firewall. We can't have the Van data. We can only have access to the Van tools. And so we have a My Campaign where we've got our own data set there, but the API should still function the same, right? So I just am not sure if that would affect the timeline at all.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so at all. Because it would, we're going to be pulling information from My Campaign as well as what is the other, I can't remember the other section of Van.
Just the voter file, I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll actually be pulling information on both. My Campaign would be, of course, people who have done things with us or that have been matched to our people. And then from the actual voter file, just some additional information based on any of the matches that have been made.
Okay, cool. Great. Thank you so much.
Sure. Any other questions?
Sure.
Scott, you can ask a question.
Yeah.
Well, I was
Go
just
ahead,
going to
Richard.
flag also, in addition to Kate, we've just had Jonathan Ullman from the Los Padres chapter join us, and James Eggers, who I believe is Loma Prieta.
That's correct.
Hi, James and Jonathan. It's kind of hard to say Jonathan of the Los Padres chapter instead of Florida.
So I have a question here for you. Can you explain to me the number of licenses for Core? And
Oh, sure.
because all of a sudden, I mean, we did our first Core training, and now I'm getting all these requests from different, because they've heard about it, how to do Campfire and everything else. Now I've got like 10 people who suddenly want access to all this stuff.
So each chapter is allotted a certain amount of users based on their membership size.
Okay, yeah.
And if they want to buy extra, they can. Right now, it's kind of just the Wild West. Anybody who wants access, we're just kind of giving them access, and we're not charging them more. So that will probably change towards the end of the year, so that at the beginning of the year, it might be trued up a little bit, because we think that some people are going to go into Salesforce, they're going to demand access, and then they're going to never use it.
Right.
And so they won't actually use it. So we'll train them, we'll give them access, they can play around in it, see if it's really for them or not. And we're also hoping that the things that we're doing in Campfire, like the newsletter part and creating events, you don't need Salesforce access for those. And we're hoping that that'll also help and cut down the need for additional licenses.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense to me now. And currently under Helen, I can assign people different levels of ability to get into things. Is particularly on donation side, is that going to be something that's coming as part of this?
Yeah, once we get the actual donation tracking in place in November, only specific people will have access to that based upon what the chapter directors tell us who needs it. So you will not automatically be given access to donations. It would have to be special permissions. So donations is totally, we understand, you need to have a little bit of control on that. So it's not totally open to everybody.
Okay. And the other thing, because I haven't played around with it enough, or there hasn't been enough activity from other people in Salesforce yet, if I have a person in a group who's their communications people, go and create an email in Salesforce, can I see that?
Well, they should be creating the email in Marketing Cloud.
Or I mean,
And yes,
I'm
yes,
sorry. Yeah,
you will be able to see that. Yes.
Okay, because sometimes, my people don't have accurate information, or sometimes you're not supposed to do that type thing. So I'm just trying to think of, how to monitor, especially in the beginning.
Right. So for Marketing Cloud, we don't give people the ability to send right away. They can create, but then they have to ask for somebody else to hit the send button.
Right.
So definitely, for the first few emails, because we want to make sure that they know what they're doing, kind of thing. So according to the chapter, it's really up to you guys. If you decide that you want to have final control over all of the group sends, then that's great. We won't give them the keys, and you would be responsible for hitting the send button.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you want to do that, that's fine. At the beginning, it's definitely going to be, my team hitting the send button again until we make sure that they know what they're doing on setting things up.
Okay, because I have the keys currently, so
Right.
I want to make sure that. Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
So we're willing to work on the chapter. And I know, some chapters are concerned about some rogue groups kind of sometimes. And yeah, we can control that as long as the chapter decides that they want to do that they have the responsibility then of getting those emails out.
Okay. Yeah, because it's a new group and they're still learning things, and I have to be careful what they're sending out. So, okay, thanks.
Sure.
Oh, one other thing. If, on the campfire side, tickets. So we can
paid events?
Yeah, a paid event type thing. So how do we get that set up? And can we use just a single one for even groups, or do groups need to set up their own? Or do you recommend that?
So we don't have bank account information for groups, so they can't actually have paid events for themselves. So they can, if they go through the chapter's bank account, and then you would be responsible for giving the money to the groups.
Okay.
And so if you want to do a paid event, give us like a time, because there's like forms to set up and test, but just let us know. Contact core.help@sierraclub.org and say, hey, I heard about paid events. I want to get on this bandwagon. And we can set up the forms for you, do a test. And then when you do go into Campfire to do paid events, it'll be ready for you. So,
okay. And that's a separate one from the donation pages.
it's the same place. It's just a different form.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Sure. Any other questions? Julie?
My biggest question had to do with the donation, when that might be up and running, because that is something we're trying to get, stay on top of. But you're saying that that's not going to be ready by the fall?
The donation tracking? Yeah, that'll be November.
Right. November. Okay, good to know, because we just moved banks because we divested from Chase Bank. And so we're trying to set up our new online payment through the new bank. And then, we're kind of playing catch up, but that'll be great when all that's online.
Yeah, definitely. And it'll all be in one place as well. That'd be good.
That would be amazing.
This is Kate again. If others don't have more questions, I'll ask one more. I was curious if, I don't know if others run into this as well, but I got a lot of questions from my team about, is there a common sort of tag to use in Core to identify people who are responding affirmatively to an email alert, like an action alert that goes out on a particular campaign or issue area, similarly to what we're doing with tagging people who are taking an offline action. I'm happy to try and rephrase that if that doesn't make sense. But basically, when we had the old system, I think there were concerns that the people who responded, say, to an offshore wind alert may not be tagged with an interest in offshore wind. And I know that the tagging is completely different in the new system, but I was wondering if you can say anything as to sort of explain how those tags are utilized, and if there is a tagging that's going on for people who are responding online to actions.
So when you're creating the online action or even the event, you want to make sure, I don't know if you know about reporting attributes and marketing tags.
Yep.
So you would want to make sure that the marketing tags includes the issues that you want to tag them with or to, associate them with.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're going to find people, you want to do not just interest, but also people who have taken action in those marketing tag areas.
Okay.
So it's kind of just, you have to kind of add that to your report.
Great.
And the cool thing about Salesforce is that, let's say that you created a campaign and you didn't know about, you created an action alert and you didn't put down the right ones, you can actually go in and just add it, and they're all automatically tagged. So,
yeah, great. Okay, thanks.
Sure.
So Lily and Chris, I imagine this can be a little bit hazardous in the digital realm, but I'm wondering, we've talked a lot about the tools that are being made available, that are available now, that are going to be made available in coming months. I'm wondering if y'all have anything to share about what people should have their thoughts around for the horizon when it comes to digital strategies. Do you have thoughts about 3 to 5 years out? What sort of innovations y'all are seeing on the horizon, both interior to the Sierra Club and also in external resources that the Sierra Club has an appetite to get a handle on and maybe start developing over time?
Well, I'm going to
go ahead.
Okay. I mean, right now, like, I really feel like this idea of distribution is where it's at, like getting these tools into more and more people's hands and getting the expertise level way up and getting them to really start thinking about how this stuff is integral to their work rather than like added on to their work, as sort of a way of augmenting the traditional work that we've done for many years in the way that we've done advocacy particularly. So that's my goal. I'm really interested in the tools and I'm interested in the technology and development and all that, but I'm primarily interested in how these things fundamentally change the way people do stuff. So how does it fundamentally change the way that we do advocacy? And that's the challenge for us. And it's more of a soft thing than it is an actual, like, innovation. We have a long road before we can consider these things to really be deeply embedded in the way that we do our work, like as much as, canvassing or just the way you create a campaign, having this be like the driving force behind a campaign is how do I use technology to reach many more people and engage them effectively and meaningfully for them. So for me, it's like more about that change management now than it is about bringing new innovations and technologies into the organization. In terms of like what's going on out there in the world, I don't think that we're going to see some innovations in the way that we've seen like social media turn the internet into a platform. I don't think that's going to happen again anytime soon. It's maturing pretty quickly. The way people use data is going to be really interesting. So how do you understand what your constituents are doing? How do you create enough touch points with your constituents, both online and offline, so that you can collect that data and then compute it and make it into something meaningful, either internally or externally as content to sort of demonstrate how powerful we are in real time? That'll be an interesting and difficult thing to do and to watch. The only other thing I would say is there is some thinking out there as like electronic assistance, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, that kind of stuff. Augmented reality, I don't think will have an important part in our toolkit, but I think AI might, in the sense that there are a lot of new innovations ending up in people's homes. And so therefore, again, it's changing the way they're doing things. People are talking to their houses now, and they're talking to devices and asking those things to do things for them. And those things are being predictive about learning about who you are and what you like to do, and then making proactive suggestions to you about like what your next step should be or what you should be thinking about today or whatever. So that's going to really start ramping up, and everybody has either Google or Apple or Amazon, and those are three big players in this. So you'll start to see a lot more stuff show up in your house and in your phone. And how do we get into that, right? So when there is a news cycle about the thing that we care about, how does somebody say, Alexa, tell me more about this thing in my neighborhood, or this thing going on in the government, or with the president right now, or whatever. How do we get something in there that would say, okay, here's some more information. Sierra Club thinks this about it. Your local chapter thinks this about it. Here's somebody you can contact, or whatever. That might be a thing that we might want to explore as a new innovation, depending on which way it goes.
This is Kate again. If I may, I would just also add that, I think some things we are seeing that are sort of evolving in the field are influencing the way that we use digital tools. Like, for example, I was really excited that we were able to roll out use of the van, even in the restricted way that we have it here in Virginia, because there are a lot of people now who are much more limited in who they'll pick up their phone for, right? And people are screening phone calls and things like that. And some of the new technology helps with that, but a lot of folks are just not willing to do it. So being able to have tools that like Van, I think where I haven't used it a whole lot myself, but I believe you can actually tag somebody having a mobile number or identify numbers that are likely to be a mobile phone number. Things like that are really helpful, because it's more likely that you'll be able to get a hold of somebody, or you can break your lists out for phone banking differently. If you have mobile numbers versus if you have others, you can do text banking, things like that. So just a few things that we're seeing, and I imagine folks in other states are seeing as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. It'll be a challenge for us in terms of the way that we engage people to think about. People are going to get more and more numb to us asking. Really, for sure. I mean, you know how it is. Everybody's getting tons of emails these days. Most of them we're deleting. We're not reading them. People are going to start getting called more, SMS'd more. They're going to stop picking up. You're totally right. So how do we make this more of a pull rather than a push exercise? How do we get people interested to the level where they're asking for it and they're coming back to find out what happened and what's my next step and what's the organizer thinking about my important issue today? How do we get people to proactively show up and be part of that in that proactive way, rather than continuing to have to lure them back? Because all the channels that we have to do that, I think, like you say, are going to become more and more difficult because there's too much noise out there. So it's up to us to create things that are so compelling and experiences that are so useful and easy and fun and interesting for average people that they're going to want to say, what's going on? I want to know more. What's my next thing? Oh, my friends got involved. I see that on social media. That's cool. I'm going to go back and check that out and see what they're doing or whatever. That's going to be really important.
Okay, we got James, Richard, Kate. Any further questions from the three of you?
Yeah, one other question about Hustle is that going to have the ability to attach a file to it, like a photo?
I'm not really sure.
Because I can just see, if you're at something, and just, it might get more of somebody sees a photo attached to it.
Yeah, I'll have to check into that and let you know.
Okay.
Or even a video. Yeah.
Yeah, a video, maybe a small document file or something or whatever, But anyway, yeah, you're going to be able to add attachments to it.
I'll look into that and
Okay, thanks.
let you know. That's an interesting question. Yeah, I'm not totally familiar with Hustle yet, so I'm not sure of the limitations. I did want to make a point about the cell phone marker in Van. We're actually going to be having, I think we already have the data. We just need to make it very visible in Salesforce. So you'll be able to find that information out there as well. So when you pull a file of people to phone bank, you can tell who's a mobile, who's not.
That's great. I guess one other thing I thought of, Lillian, you referenced in Drupal that there are different sizes, like there's apartment, condo, house, and mansion. I'm sure that I'm lucky enough to have a comms person. I'm sure that they know what the answer to this is, but is there some way we can know which one we're utilizing?
Oh, you should ask Drupal.help@sierraclub.org because it really just is the number of features.
Okay.
So yeah, if you've got a really, really complicated website, then it's the mansion. But I don't know what the difference is between the house and the mansion.
Okay, no worries. Thanks.
That actually worked very well when we were launching that to get people to understand, sizes kind of thing.
James, did you have a question?
Just one. I would like to introduce the variety of options to our communication and membership committees. What do you recommend is the single easiest source for them to get an overview of the options and what they do?
There's actually a distributed movement buildings site that's created by Ollie Whitney, who's our conservation data director. And it's basically got links to everything. So that is one of the best places. I'll be glad to send the link around.
Thank you.
Let me make a note of that.
Any other questions? And if not, Lillian, Chris, do y'all have any final thoughts or comments?
No, I'm good. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming and participating and the good questions and for listening.
Yes, I wanted to thank everybody as well. And if you have questions about any of this, let me know or email core.help@sierraclub.org. Thank you.
Thank you both, Chris and Lillian, very much for spending the time putting together that wonderful presentation and answering these questions. And I'm fingers crossed this recording went out and it'll be memorialized and up there for people to look at far into the future. And thank you, Richard, Kate, James, and the others who joined us earlier. Really appreciate y'all's participation and your great questions. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
We'll
Scott,
Thanks.
for putting it together, Scott.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Thanks.